All right. Well, in that case, we'll call to order, and I believe Vice Chair Williamson has a statement to read for us. And you're still muted. Well, he was there a minute ago. In case anyone doesn't know, he's going to read a statement. He is on city business, I'm told, in Paris. Rough life.
We should arrange for a tour of the sewers. I've heard they're really neat.
Believe it or not, I have toured the wastewater treatment plant for the city of Paris. It's pretty big.
Imagine.
Well, while we're trying to get Vice Chair Williamson back, we do want to welcome Luke Coletti, who is filling in for Nick Smith. Thank you. Appreciate your coming in as his alternate tonight. We want to go ahead with roll call, and when Vice Chair Williamson gets reconnected, we'll get him to read his statement. So roll call, please.
Miranda.
Here.
Here. County of Monterey.
Here.
Delray Oaks.
Here.
Marina Coast.
Here.
Monterey. Pacific Grove.
Here.
Salinas.
Here.
Sand City.
Here.
Seaside.
Here. All right. Next up on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. So since she gets to sit in Vice Chair Williamson's spot tonight, how about Director Carbone lead us in the pledge, please?
After me. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Director Carbone. So we go to agenda item 4. Are there any additions to the agenda? Mr. Sciutto?
No additions.
No additions? All right. We go to agenda 5. Is there anyone who care to make a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second? Thank you very much. We have a motion and a second. Anyone from the public wishing to comment on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions? Please show unanimous with one absent. We'll get to agenda item 6, which is public comments. Anyone wishing to address the board on matters that do not appear on the agenda for tonight may do so now for not more than 3 minutes. Comments, of course, on any other matter listed on the agenda will be welcomed at the time that matter is considered by the board. Anyone from the public wishing to make public comment on matters not on the agenda? All right, seeing none, we'll move to the consent agenda. Directors, anyone wishing to pull anything from consent?
I did not notice any minutes.
Well, 7A is minutes.
Were they in the packet?
Oh,
Packet. We had an issue with them being uploaded, but we did confirm they are in there.
In the packet that was mailed out initially?
No, so
Okay,
they were,
that was the problem, I guess,
Yeah.
then. Okay.
but they're there since after that
On Civic Clerk.
in Civic Clerk.
So they're there on Civic Clerk within the packet.
Okay.
okay. Do you wish to poll or abstain or?
It's going with the whole, I don't want to poll over it, but I'll trust other people. They got it correct. And I'll, it's the whole item here. So
We could certainly pull that item and have it approved next board meeting if you'd like, since it was not in the initial.
Paper
pull it
packet?
out, I'd stain, but and then vote, I just I didn't see them because just didn't see them. I guess they came different way.
Well, some folks get their packets on paper, some folks get their packets electronically, and if there's a mismatch for some reason, that would explain it. We can hold it till the next meeting.
You good with that, Jai?
Yep.
Okay.
Pull it.
And then,
I'm happy. I'm gonna tie things down in just a minute here. I'm just pointing out, I didn't see them. I didn't know if other people had them. So we can just go and approve the consent calendar.
Okay.
I don't think any of you are holding back secrets on me that, there's said things in there that.
Fair enough, fair enough. Okay. All right, so no directors are pulling anything. Anyone from the public wishing to pull anything from the agenda, excuse me, from the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So move.
Thank you, Director Cabana. Is there a second? Thank you very much, Director Ragsdale Cronin. We have a motion and a second. Anyone from the public wishing to comment on the motion? Got electrons on my mind. Modem. Okay. All right, seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Chair
Aye.
Moore, Chair Moore, we
Oh,
need to do
yeah,
roll
that's
call.
right, because
Council.
and,
he's back.
He's
back.
He's back. Now we have to take a roll call.
and does he need to state his,
Yes, we'll. So Vice Chair Williamson, sorry you had some technical problems, but I believe you have a statement for us.
Yes, so I'm participating in today's meeting remotely under recent amendments to the Brown Act due to official business travel on behalf of the city of Monterey that prevents me from participating in person. There is not someone 18 or older in the room with me. And I came, sorry. Oh, that's it.
Thank you very much, and we do appreciate your
correctly.
participating because if my math is correct, it's what, about 2 a.m?
It is 2 a.m. It absolutely is.
All right, thank you very much. So now we go to a roll call vote for the consent agenda.
Aranda,
Yes.
Castroville,
Yes.
County of Monterey,
Yes.
Delray Oaks.
Yes.
Marina Coast.
Yes,
Monterey,
Yes.
Pacific Grove,
Yes.
Salinas,
Yes.
Sand City,
Yes.
Seaside.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
thank you very much. All right, we get to agenda item 8, committee reports. Item A is this new ad hoc committee on outreach for moving the wastewater billing to the county as our new billing agent. As most of you know from a email I asked Chai to send out, we looked for volunteers to serve on an ad hoc committee to provide some feedback to both Mike McCullough and Rachel, who were putting together the outreach plan. We had 4 volunteers and we had about 2 hours. I think we met for about 2 hours. Rachel gave us a very professionally designed strategy for the plan. We provided some feedback to her on that plan. We have another meeting scheduled for I believe the 3rd of April. She has produced the first collection of notices and notification, and those materials have been provided to the members of the committee. So that's my report, but would any of the committee members care to add anything? I don't see Vice Chair Williamson raising his hand, so any questions from directors? Now I know that Rachel Godoyan does have a short presentation if you'd like to see it, but up to you whether you want to make her stand up in front of the podium or not. Okay, I don't see any demand for that. So Rachel, thank you very much. Keep doing good work and we'll see you on the 3rd. Are there any comments from the public? Bless you. All right, seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item 8B, Budget and Personnel Committee, which was canceled. So I doubt you can give us a report. And then we move on to agenda item 8C, which is Recycled Water Committee. Anyone care to move to receive the draft minutes?
I'll move to receive the draft minutes. Second.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion? Go out to the public. Anyone from the public wishing to comment on the draft minutes of the Recycled Water Committee? All right, seeing none, we'll need a roll call vote again.
Aranda,
Yes.
Castroville,
Yes.
County of Monterey,
Yes.
Delray Oaks.
Yes.
Marina Coast.
Yes.
Monterey,
Yes.
Pacific Grove,
Yes.
Salinas, Sand City,
Yes.
Seaside.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Shows all but one absent. We move on to agenda item 9A, action item. So Mr. Bayadao.
Good evening. Good evening, Chairman Moore and board members. My name is Jerry Baladale, Associate Engineer with Monterey One Water. I will be discussing the CP 536 four-door interceptor repair project. The four-door. Okay, the four-door 42-inch interceptor is a concrete pressure pipe, bar-wrapped steel cylinder pipe which conveys wastewater from the Monterey Peninsula to the regional treatment plant. During the CP 312 Headworks bar screens diversion project, it was discovered that the bar-wrapped steel cylinder experienced severe corrosion with thickness loss of over 80% in some areas. So the photo on the left shows the four-door interceptor coming in out of the ground through the vault structure and discharging to the headworks influent junction structure at the regional treatment plant. And then the photo on the right is a close-up that 45-degree elbow is showing the corrosion to the bar-wrapped steel cylinder due to exposure to water from the cracked concrete mortar. You can see that the bars are missing on the elbow, and there's definitely a lot of loss of steel cylinder. And next slide, please. The photo on the left shows the headworks bypass pipe from the four-door interceptor inside the vault. We're looking down into the vault structure. And the photo on the right shows a close-up of the T. You see it's heavily corroded from the water getting in the pipe or below the coating and cement mortar lining. And then next slide. The last photo that was taken was from inside the headworks influent junction structure, looking inside that four-door interceptor. As you can see from the water line, the discharge end of the pipe is not full. The top portion of the pipe is exposed to hydrogen sulfide gas. You see there's a liner bond, which is like a glued on plastic liner that was field installed a few years after the plant was in operation due to damage from H2S gas, exposure to the cement mortar lining. Now the line bond is peeling back at the elbow and at the seams and exposing the pipe to H2S gas and corrosion. The next slide. So it was determined that the pipe cannot be rehabilitated and a 25-foot section will need to be replaced with a more corrosion resistant pipe. And this is just photo showing the final replaced pipe section. Kroll engineers who designed the CP312 project developed the bid documents to replace the corroded four-door interceptor section. The project went out to bid last year and only one bid was received at 3.6 million. And this was much higher than the engineer's estimate at 2.6 million. The bid was rejected by the board at the November 27th board meeting. Staff modified the bid documents to reduce the project costs and advertise the project for bid this year with a 5-week bid period. A mandatory pre-bid meeting and job walkthrough was conducted with 4 potential bidders in attendance. On February 29th, Monterey One Water received 2 bids. The low bid was $2,048,750 per Mountain Cascade. The project was not anticipated and therefore not budgeted for this fiscal year. However, the replacement will need to be implemented due to the condition of the pipe. $500,000 will come from CP 346 fire pump storage tanks project that will not be spent this fiscal year, and the remaining will be from agency's contingency fund. A budget adjustment form has been included with the staff report. And next slide. So the staff requests that the board of directors award a construction contract to Mountain Cascade for the CP 356 four-door interceptor repair project in the amount of $2,048,750 with a 10% contingency for a total not to exceed amount of $2,253,625 and authorize a budget transfer in the not to exceed amount of $2,253,625. Now we'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Directors, any questions? Director Church.
The first time this went out, you said it was a 3.6 million bid that came back.
Correct.
And now we had a 2 and a 2.5. And were either of these that we have now bidded previously? Or what did we do
The-
differently to get them to bid? Let me ask you that
Yeah,
question.
we had two, well, the original bidder was at 3.65. They came back with 2.5. We were able, we do reduce the cost by changing the size of the bypass line, which helped reduce significant cost from a 54-inch OD pipe to a 36 OD pipe. So we're able to do that since we're gonna be doing that during the dry weather season. So that decreased cost a lot.
So really, it wasn't quite the same project in that way. So, okay.
No, engineering changed it, did some value engineering to try to figure out how to reduce the costs as best as they could under the conditions that we have. So
Right.
hence the reason the difference from the 3.6 to the 2 and change.
Other questions? So I'm sure much of the public hasn't read our board packet. Could you explain why a 25-foot section of 36-inch pipe is likely to cost $2.2 million?
Yes, I can answer that.
Yeah.
So we have to tie into the main line to bypass the line. We need to, so it's gonna take quite at least a month to replace that section of line. So we have to hot tap and line stop the forward interceptor and bypass the line. The bypass line is roughly 2,000 feet long, a 36-inch HDPE pipe. So that's a significant cost for the project.
Sure, what percentage or what cost the bypass is alone just to take the flows off so they can make that repair?
It's at least over 50%, or it's gonna be over $1 million.
Right.
And why does it require,
What was your question? Sorry.
why does it require 2,000 feet of
Well,
bypass line for a 25-foot section?
We were looking to see if we could locate the tie-in location closer to the headworks, but the pipe is at that location is 19 feet deep versus, where we're located, where we're doing tie-ins, like less than 12 feet deep. There's a lot of utilities near where location by the headworks. And also don't want to impede any deliveries of chlorine and hydrogen peroxide deliveries. And so the way we had to do that, we had to locate a little bit further away to meet those constraints.
In other words, you had to find an accessible
Correct.
place downstream in the line to tap in to do this bypass process while you dry out the section that's being
You're right, it's upstream, yeah, but yeah, we had to, yeah,
upstream
exactly.
being replaced. Okay. So at the end of this, we're also going to have 2,000 feet of 36-inch flexible plastic pipe hanging around.
I think they're gonna be selling it back, because that was a significant cost. The original cost, they couldn't, it was an oddball size. And so they couldn't sell it back. That's why it was 3.65 million. But when we lowered the pipe, it was more of a standard size, so they can sell it back to the people that they're renting it from.
But we will not have it.
Okay.
It is built into the bid that they are selling it, and
Hopefully that's part of the cost reduction from 3.6 to
Yes.
2.2.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Any other? Yes, Director.
Yeah, you said you're going to
Comment.
replace the existing pipe with something different. What are you going to go in with?
It is the fiberglass reinforced polymer mortar pipe.
Okay.
So it's more corrosion resistant to hydrogen sulfide gas.
Cool. Thank you.
So hopefully we won't have to do this project again in 10 years.
Exactly.
All right. Very good. All right. If there are no other comments or questions from directors, go out to the public. And seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Director Church. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right. And since we have Vice Chair Williamson on virtual, we'll go to a roll call vote.
Rhonda,
Yes.
Castroville,
Yes.
County of Monterey,
Yes.
Delray Oaks,
Yes.
Marina Coast.
Yes.
Monterey,
Yes.
Pacific Grove,
Yes.
Salinas,
Yes.
Sand City,
Yes.
Seaside.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much. We move on to agenda item 10A, Pure Water Monterey update. Mr. Lindau.
Yes, good evening, Chair Moore, board members. While Chai is getting my slides up, I'd like to note that the total acre feet to date since inception 14,275. March, again, being a rainy month, looks like it's going to approach 400 acre feet this month. And this, of course, is our 4th anniversary. So if you go back 4 years today, remember March 2020, that's when COVID hit. So the world was shutting down, but Monterey One Water, with its partners, Marina Coast Water District and the Water Management, they were starting up Pure Water Monterey. And if you convert acre feet to gallons, it's close to 4.6 billion gallons of drinking water recharged into the Seaside Basin. I think once a year, somebody should get a plaque or something. Okay, so the expansion, we're under construction. Maybe hold this up just for a second for some of our new directors to see if there's any questions about what exactly we're doing. If no questions, let's jump into a highlight over at injection well phase 4. If you remember previously, so next slide, please. Previously said there's not much construction happening at AWPF right now. We're waiting for our long lead electrical equipment and process equipment. But at injection well phase 4, next slide, please. The contractor, before he can start drilling the new deep wells, he has to get some water up to those well sites for the method that they'll use to drill those 1,000 feet deep wells. So right now they're installing this 2,800 foot length of 20-inch pipe. It's being done via horizontal directional drilling. Okay. And our first slide shows, our next slide, please. Shows the beginning of what's called the pilot boring. In fact, this is almost 2 weeks ago. Okay. So they're actually drilling from the east to the west for the pilot boring. All right, next slide. Now keep your eye on this. So this is the end of the pilot boring. We'll see this pop out on the other side of this hill. Okay, almost half a mile away. Next slide, please. And then once the pilot bore is done, they're reaming as we speak a 30-inch diameter boring, and they will pull this HDPE pipe, high density polyethylene pipe. The wall thickness is 1.8 inches thick. So it's flexible, but super strong. Next slide. Quick detail, each joint is actually fused in the field. So they assemble it in the field. They're basically melting the ends, if you will. Lots of QC involved with this kind of project. Next picture. So here's the punchline. So again, a half mile away on the other side of the hill, here's the end of the pilot bore popping out. So the contractor knew where it was supposed to come out. He dug this trench waiting for that to come through the hill. And that's how accurate he was. So that relieved us for a couple of reasons. One, it meant that our engineering, our soils work was right on, that they could get through the hill. There was nothing in there we didn't know about. And two, maybe more importantly, the HDD subcontractor, it's a specialty subcontractor. He knows what he's doing. He has the right equipment. Okay, so important day for us. This is a $2.1 million piece of this particular project, and it looks like it's going well. In fact, tomorrow, if you get up there at around 7 a.m., they're going to start the process of pulling that pipeline through the reamed out tunnel that they've dug since then. So hopefully I haven't jinxed them by saying things are going great, but by this time tomorrow, we'll know if this particular specialty contractor's done their job, done it well, and he'll be demobilizing by the end of week after next. So with that, those highlights, I'll open it up to any questions.
Questions? Director Cronin. Oh, I'm sorry.
One next.
Dr. Coletti.
Are there any shallow wells still in place?
Yeah, so we
Shallow
have
injection wells?
2 shallow wells. They're called the Vados wells. So they only go down about 100 feet. What we learned early on, so almost 3.5 years ago, is that the water did not flow well through those sands.
Yeah.
So before you get down to the first aquifer, the Paso Robles aquifer. There's almost 300 or 400 feet of what's called aroma sands. And that particular method of recharging the basin did not turn out to be very efficient. So yes, we're still injecting in those 2 shallow wells, but it's not a lot of water.
At a reduced rate.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Well, it's significantly reduced. We're like at 20 gallons a minute or
40, yeah.
20, 25,
40.
where the initial thoughts were it could be up to 500 gallons per minute. So they still exist and they're still being used, but just not as effectively as we thought.
Other questions? How long is it going to take to pull that half mile of polyethylene pipe through the
It'll
bore?
be done by sunset tomorrow, if all goes well.
Oh, I was going with this.
And we hope
There's gonna
they-
be a bunch of us there watching it. It's pretty impressive
yeah,
what they do. And which is why that particular specialty subcontractor, they take that specialized equipment, they do projects like this all across the state. They move from job to job. There's about a half a dozen specialty contractors in California that can do it this well. We're
Okey-doke.
lucky to get these guys.
All right, any questions from anyone from the public or comments? Thank you very much, Mr. Lindau, for an excellent report and excellent work continuing to provide new water to our community. All right, we move on then to agenda item 10B. Paul, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Moore. So I just want to give a brief introduction, not only to our staff, but also about this presentation on our capital improvement program. Some of you haven't seen this yet. In past, we've gone through this and looking at a 10-year capital improvement plan and what projects need to occur based on risk for the treatment plant, the collection system, pump stations, all that good stuff. Very similar presentation, but you'll note some differences from last year in terms of the sheer numbers of projects, as well as a decrease in those because we've bundled some, but also an increase in the overall cost between the 5-year and the 10-year plan. I'll let our engineering staff discuss it, but I do want to preface this with, this is sort of a first cut. And as you all know, we're in the middle of the budget process. So this is going to change a little bit, but this gives you a flavor for the type of projects we have out there and that we're truly trying to get done for resiliency and maintaining our reliability of the system. Some of them are addressing 2 issues. One, something at the treatment plant that may need upgrading or rehab, as well as the renewable energy project that we're working on with Regen Monterey. So these co-benefits have been added to this year's presentation, which sort of increase some of those costs. With that as a backdrop, I would like to introduce Matt Thompson. Matt, who is our new Director of Engineering. Fire any question you want at him because he's been here like 3 weeks. Is that right? 4 weeks? 3.
Week 4, yes.
Oh, okay. He comes to us from the city of Paso Robles. He also worked at the Central Coast Regional Water Quality Control Board. So very much appreciate him being on board and helping out. And then certainly Jen Gonzalez, our manager of our CIP projects, will be presenting some of the details on the specific engineering projects. So with that.
All right. Thank you for that kind introduction, Paul. Good evening, directors. I'm Matt Thompson, your new Director of Engineering. I'm a civil and environmental engineer who has dedicated my career to wastewater management and water recycling. I'm a big fan of Monterey One Water, and I'm really looking forward to helping out with our infrastructure needs. In the short time I've been here, I've gathered all the information I can about our agency's various facilities, so it may help refine our capital improvement program. Your staff is very knowledgeable and has been very helpful in bringing me up to speed fairly quickly. I'll preview the highlights of the proposed capital improvement program for the next 10 years. You can bring up the first slide there, Chai. Thank you. And then Jennifer will follow up by giving you an update on the capital projects that are currently in progress. As you know, the original regional treatment plant was commissioned in 1990 and is now 34 years old. There are many parts of the plant that have reached end of useful life or maybe operating at full capacity. The regional treatment plant will require improvements in the coming years to ensure we're able to continue providing reliable wastewater service for many decades to come. We are also entering a new era in which the plant will be used to generate more renewable energy. Infrastructure improvements are needed to prepare for this. Improvements are also needed to comply with evolving environmental regulations and minimize operational costs. There's quite a bit of opportunity to improve efficiencies. About 2 years ago, our agency teamed up with Regen and hired the engineering firm GHD to help us identify specific improvements needed to improve our energy independence and resilience. I anticipate you will hear a full presentation of that effort at, I believe, next month's board meeting. I have incorporated many of GHD's recommendations, tempered with my own critical assessment of our facility needs into this proposed capital improvement program. Next slide, please. One area that has captured my attention are the processes we use to manage the solids that are removed from wastewater. It is very important for the health and performance of our biological treatment process that solids be effectively and efficiently removed from the system. The existing plant has some deficiencies that will become much more apparent when we begin to receive food waste later this year. Here's an overview of the solids handling side of the regional treatment plant, and here are the highlights of the improvements that we propose. Next slide, click please. All right, the first major proposed project is at the anaerobic digesters, which break down the sludge we remove from the wastewater and generate biogas. Much of that existing system is undersized or has reached end of useful life. We are proposing to replace and upsize the biogas piping, a gas compressor, and a high pressure gas storage vessel. We also need to replace a boiler and repair some of the steam piping that heats the digesters. While we're at it, we would like to add a modern control system to the existing engine generators. These improvements will help us greatly to produce and use more renewable energy. This project will cost approximately $17.8 million. We propose to get started with design next fiscal year and construct the improvements in the following 2 years. Next slide, please. The second major project is to improve dewatering of the biosolids that are removed from the anaerobic digesters. As the communities we serve continue to grow and we begin to receive more and more food waste, the amount of biosolids we generate will increase. Due to changes in our state's regulation of organic waste, commonly called Senate Bill 1383, we are going to have to stop putting these biosolids in the neighboring landfill, and will instead have to truck this material out of the area for processing and disposal starting in 2025. It is in our best interest to improve dewatering of this material and thus minimize the volume and weight of material to be trucked away. This will also facilitate future advanced processing of the material and help minimize odor associated with further drying of the biosolids. GHD has recommended a project to replace our existing dewatering equipment with 2 new high-performance centrifuges. This project is estimated to cost approximately $26 million. We'd like to get started on design of this project in fiscal year 2026 and construct the project in the subsequent 2 years. All right, the third project is a nutrient harvesting system, likely to be constructed in conjunction with improved solids dewatering. When you squeeze the liquid out of biosolids, that liquid is full of nutrients and can be harmful when returned to the biological treatment process. The flow of this liquid will increase a bit with the introduction of food waste later this year. There's an opportunity to harvest the nutrients in this liquid and turn it into commercial grade fertilizer. We recommend scheduling a $7 million project to install a nutrient harvesting system starting in fiscal year 2026. All right, the last major project proposed is installation of a biosolids drying and pyrolysis system. starting in fiscal year 2029. So this one's in the 5 to 10 year time horizon. Pyrolysis is heating of organic matter in the absence of air to create a charcoal-like material called biochar. The volume and weight of material is greatly reduced, and harmful pollutants in biosolids such as PFAS are destroyed. This will greatly reduce our agency's liabilities associated with traditional disposal of biosolids. The biochar can be marketed for beneficial use in agriculture, in concrete to sequester carbon, as a substitute for carbon black for pigmentation of various products, and potentially for environmental remediation applications. If pyrolysis is applied correctly, there is an opportunity to reclaim much or all of the land we currently use for solar drying of biosolids, which is the large area I've highlighted here in green. Our rough planning level cost estimate is $40 million for installation of a full-scale pyrolysis process. Biosolids pyrolysis is a leading edge technology that grant funding agencies are encouraging. So there is great potential to offset this project cost with significant grant funding if we can move ahead with this project. There's also a business case to be made for installation of pyrolysis because we would go from paying for disposal of wet and heavy biosolids to generating revenue from biochar sales. So those are the highlights of the new projects that are proposed in the capital improvement program. Next slide, please. Here is a quick summary of all the proposed capital project spending for the next 5 and 10 years. This first slide is for the upcoming 5 years. You can see the 6 different categories that these projects fall into. You can see that the bulk of the spending will be at the regional treatment plant, which is really appropriate because these are among the oldest facilities in our wastewater system. And then moving on to the next slide, please. This is the total for the upcoming 10 years, the cumulative amount. This includes the 5-year and the 10-year amounts. And again, you can see the bulk of the proposed expenditures are really reinvestments in the original regional treatment plant. This is big. We recognize this has been big money. We anticipate that many of these projects will have to be debt financed. You can only dip the cash reserves so much, but that, unless you have questions about the upcoming 10-year capital improvement program, I'd like to hand it off to Jen to give you an update on the projects that are in progress. Do you want to start with questions or comments on the proposed 10-year program?
Any questions or comments?
Can we go back to the final slide with the picture of the treatment plant on it? That one.
Yes,
So in the digester gas piping and heating, has there been any consideration of moving away from steam and going strictly with hot water? Because there's some efficiencies there. The engines run hot. You got heat exchangers. You've got a lot of controls in that loop. Has there been any consideration, one, of looking at just a straight hot water system?
Actually, hot water heating of an anaerobic digester is what I'm accustomed to. I think it's certainly something that we can consider when we get into the design of these improvements. I think that's a good suggestion.
And then in the shifting from the screw presses, which are very energy efficient, they may not be real good squeezing the water out of this stuff, but they're very, very energy efficient because they're like 10 horsepower or something ridiculous. I have some experience with centrifuges 40 years ago that were horrific. I'm sure the new ones are much better, but they are energy hogs. Is that built into enhancing our energy, our incoming energy and all that? Is that factored into that project?
Yeah, GHD has recommended centrifuges because you get much higher dewatering performance. I have seen improvements in centrifuge equipment in recent years, but yes, they do spin the biosolids at a very high rate to achieve that higher solids reduction. There is dewatering. There is more energy input to them.
Okay, thank you.
So Bill, certainly we'll look at the life cycle costs of anything we put in there, centrifuges, other They are much better than they used to be.
I'm sure they are.
But also in the context of working with regen, having that additional renewable energy be available to us is also sort of an offset that we need to look at. So when we look at the overall life cycle cost and bring it down to a net present value, we'll use those energy costs versus your traditional PG&E escalated rates over the 30 years.
Because those things will be, I'm guessing 1,000 horsepower each, maybe, or bigger.
I don't know if they'll be
I
that
don't,
big.
I don't think they'll be that big. They gear them up so that they run
Yeah.
efficient.
So the last ones I designed or was part of a design when they were about 100 horsepower
Mhm.
motors for 4 centrifuges, but
Just
still
curious.
big.
Yeah, they're still big and they still spin. So, well, thank you.
We will be looking at alternatives to centrifuges. We do believe we're suggesting that the $26 million is an appropriate placeholder budget, but we will be doing a full comparison to all the dewatering technologies that are out there. And again, taking into account the life cycle cost of that equipment. So we, again, this is just for planning purposes. When we get into design, we'll get into those details. Maybe we'll have you come out to one of our workshops.
Well, this will be, let's see, we've done just the drying beds. Then we went to belt press that we harvested from another agency. Then we went to the screws, and each time we've changed, we've looked at centrifuges. So it's probably time to go ahead and rip the bandage off and go to centrifuges, because they do work, and they do work really well. They just have they used to have high maintenance costs and high energy costs. It's just the wear of the material going through. That's it for me. I'm done.
Okay, other questions?
Interesting item as far as nutrient harvesting. Is that nitrate, phosphate? What kind of annual revenue would you expect from that?
Yeah, so if you do it right, the way it works is that liquid is super saturated with ammonia and phosphorus. So you add a little bit it's fairly simple. You add a little bit of magnesium chloride to balance out the ions, and then you add a little bit of caustic soda to bring up the pH, and you essentially force precipitation of the struvite crystals out of the solution.
Okay.
You get about an 80% removal of the phosphorus and about a 30% removal of the ammonia. And the liquid that you return to the plant does not cause nuisance struvite formation in the plant. And it also sort of frees up some capacity in your biological process. The resulting nutrients is a commercial grade fertilizer called struvite. And you could sell it off to fertilizer distributors who will add other nutrients to it and balance it out, and then they'll market it. The primary idea behind nutrient harvesting is to protect your process. The amount that you can get for it presently just offsets a fraction of the equipment cost. You can't really at this point expect to recoup the entire equipment cost. But again, this is one of those essential pieces of equipment for the protection of this plant.
Sure. So the process of doing the extraction is fairly easy. Sounds like a chemical industrial kind of
It's
arrangement.
straight chemistry, the principles of chemistry.
And 30%, you might get a 30% return on investment per annum. Okay.
Yeah.
And we would certainly get into a cost benefit of when you go into design at this point too.
Yes. There are other technologies that this budget would provide for, but my look at it is it looks like nutrient harvesting might be the best fit. But at this point, we probably should be treatment agnostic until we can get an engineering firm on board to evaluate again the life cycle cost of various solutions.
Thank you. Other questions? Director Carbone? All right, go ahead. Director Carbone and Director Church.
Yes, so earlier you mentioned renewable energy. I'm wondering if we had thought about and I'll say it again, emergency backup power if we do not have energy for a certain amount of time, because our sewer is like the number one safety thing. It's sewer, so that it's working. So have we thought about I mean, have we looked at it? I know people are talking microgrid right now and everything. So have we? given
Yes.
that any thought?
Short answer is yes. So we have diesel generators on site now that I'm going to say last time we had a big outage, Jose, was November for 3 days. That was the longest one recently. 4 days. And for that period of time, we're able to stay online between all the diesel generators. We did have to fire up the Dinosaur, which is one of the older generators, as you can imagine, with a nickname. But we're able to keep the treatment plant going. We are certainly looking at and applying for grants for additional natural gas generators to be more resilient in times of outages. And then we also have our cogen facilities, which can be synced and drive or produce electricity for the plant as well. So generally speaking, you can keep things going in an emergency, but we're trying to be a little more resilient than we have been because as Matt said, these generators are 30 years old. So we do need to invest some there. Once again, we're looking for some grants. There are some opportunities out there. We'll see what happens. Did you want to add to that, Tammy?
I'm not supposed to touch my microphone.
Let's see if I can. Oh, I didn't do it either.
Yeah, just rest assured that we always have backup power, always. I mean, there was an agency or a company that was asking, well, how much downtime would we be willing to live with? And I said, none, not even 5 minutes. The material is going to keep flowing. So that's why we, Daryl and Jose, they always have backup to backups to backups. So the Dinosaur that we fired up was actually to operate AWPF so we can still produce water. But the RTP has always been designed to have backup because we cannot be down not even 5 minutes.
Right. And the longest time was about a week.
So in 2017, I think we were down for 5 or 6 days. Last November, like right before Thanksgiving, we were down from Sunday through Wednesday. It's an extraordinary amount of time figuring an essential service being out of power. Now, during those periods of time, it's all hands on deck and people running diesel back and forth and making sure things are operating because it's generally not just the plant, but all our outlying facilities as well.
Right. So we were off PG&E power. We
Yeah.
had power within the plant itself through either generators or the cogen facility.
I'm sorry, I need to say an anecdote here just on how long they've been dealing with this sort of stuff. These generators are old and the control systems are old. So our people maintaining them and starting them up and getting them going is critical. I remember a certain sitting board member calling me at 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning in 2017. And he's like, Paul, plant generator won't start. We got 30 million gallons coming from Salinas because it was storming and we didn't have power at that point in time. That is a really untenable situation. So getting these generators up to snuff and making sure they can start. Oh, by the way, they did start it and everything was good, but it's scary because we need to keep the water in the pipe, right?
So I'm just bringing this up at our last mayor's meeting, which my city hosted. We had Fred Muir, and he's with a national defense agency, and they were talking about attacks with China and stuff, and that areas could be put out for like a month with no power, and that it's a very real threat. So I had brought up Monterey 1, and so just thoughts of can we generate power. I know Community Hospital has a cogen plant out there, and I know they sell power. Well, they were selling power back to PG&E. They weren't supposed to, but just so that just a concern, a major concern.
Absolutely. And it's a concern of all our people and reflected in the budget. And I think people do a great job between all the pump stations and the treatment plant keeping things going when the power's out. I've learned not to answer phone calls on Saturday, Sunday mornings, because the last Sunday morning was the one before Thanksgiving where Tammy called me. So
Better Tammy than me. One comment real quick, sir.
Yes, and then we'll go to Director
Um,
Church.
One thing to think about as you're going on, when the treatment plant was built, it was designed to gravity flow through in a major emergency. So it's not just going to come spewing out on the ground. It will move through. You have reduced treatment. You have a lot of buildup of solids and everything else, but it won't spill out on the ground. So even if you don't have power, the flow still goes through and you get primary treatment pretty much is about what you get out of the deal. So, but you won't be swimming out of the treatment plant area. So that's some consolation, but did we can black start cogen now, Jose? Or can we sync to the standby?
Yeah, they've been, yeah, so we can actually run the engines sync with commercial.
Right. That's always been.
you need to get on the microphone.
Sorry to put you on the spot, Jose.
Yeah, Daryl and his team, the utilities team, has made quite a bit of improvements on the
Yeah,
cogen
we
side.
were almost there when I left.
Yeah,
That's why I was
and
curious.
it's even to the point now where we can kind of share the cogen generator can
Mhm.
run with the engines,
Mhm.
so that we don't have to shed load in the plant. So you keep
Perfect.
full treatment capacity, but you're able to reduce the demand on the engines and cogen by them both syncing together.
Cool. Yeah. We were working towards that.
Director Church.
Yes, thanks for answering and you for raising the questions on the nutrient harvesting. I was interested in that as well, but I also want to look at the biochar. Most of my experience with biochar is with wood products. I mean, so I'm kind of course, it's all carbon is carbon. So, it all comes down to it, but I'm interested if there's a couple things. One, how much is going to be produced through this process? Also the question of economics, or is this actually going to make money again or not? And is there any different properties as opposed to traditional biochar, which is basically charcoal anyway?
So when you introduce the organic matter to the pyrolysis process, you typically see a 10-fold reduction in weight and volume. So you could take 10 wet tons of biosolids and it is reduced to essentially 1 ton of biochar. And that biochar, there's quite a market for it now. The hot market right now is they mix it into concrete as a substitute for some of the aggregate in the concrete, and they're marketing it because you're sequestering carbon into the concrete. They're marketing it as carbon neutral or carbon negative concrete. That's the hot market for it, and they're selling the biochar at more than $400 per ton. So you go from essentially paying for what will upwards be of $100 per wet ton for disposal to seeing a nice little revenue stream for the sale of the biochar. I don't have the numbers on wet tonnage today versus what the biochar production would be in the future, but suffice to say it would be a very nice improvement in how much has to be hauled away.
Economically, is there an idea of how much money we might be generating from this?
So there's a nice model in Redwood City, an agency called Silicon Valley Clean Water. I believe Paul has visited there, and they have a model set up where this Italian company that set up the equipment has a revenue sharing agreement where they basically give 10% of all the revenues from the sale of biochar back to I believe it's Redwood City or Silicon Valley Clean Water. And so at $400 a ton, they're getting $40 per ton of biochar back. And it just helps to offset the increased cost of running the fairly expensive pyrolysis equipment.
So there's a couple ways to do it, right? If we were to buy it ourselves and operate it ourselves, then that revenue generation is ours. Matt's talking about, I think it's the Bioforce Tech, that it's a public-private partnership. So they come in, you give them a chunk of land, they put their equipment on, They process everything, they sell it, and you get a cut. So there are different models out there, and it seems like it's becoming much more prevalent with different types of technology. So just ballpark numbers that, please take it. I'm a recovering engineer. I use my iPhone calculator, which isn't exactly scientific, but based on our average tonnage over the last 10 years, assuming the decrease in volume at $400 a ton, we're looking at about $250,000 of revenue, ballpark. So it's not going to pay for the equipment that you see here or anything like that, but it is truly, it does a couple different things. One, it gets us out of the landfill like SB 1383 is making us do. It destroys the perfluorinated compounds, the forever chemicals that are out there that we all need to be worried about. Well, if it's destroyed, we don't have to be worried about it anymore. So there's some ancillary benefits that we need to look at and analyze to see if it's worthwhile to try something ourselves, go after grant funding, or do a third party, public-private partnership in something like this. It is interesting though.
Other questions? So I do have one. You indicated that there's about a 90% decrease in weight. You put in 100 tons into this pyrolysis machine and you get 10 tons out. Of course, if I recall my college physics correctly, there is conservation of mass. So what form does the other 90 tons exit the pyrolysis machine as or in?
Just driving off the water.
So it's just H2O, no other emissions.
Let's see, they do have some emissions associated with them, and they have some wet scrubber type equipment to scrub the emissions to make sure there's not a lot of NOx or nitrogen oxide or carbon monoxide to knock that down. But the bulk of the weight reduction is in the driving off of the H2O.
Okay. Thank you very much for we'll go to Jennifer in just a moment, but thank you very much for a good overview. Even though, of course, from a future budget perspective, it's more expensive. But as Paul has noted, and I'm sure our PR folks and Rachel will let the public know, the elimination of PFAS from our biosolids is highly beneficial to the public. Those forever chemicals that are unfortunately throughout our environment will be lessened. We'll also be complying with the law, which is going to limit what we can put into the landfill in terms of biosolids, and we may generate a few beneficial products for use by the public in some form or other. So thank you very much. Ms. Gonzalez, please.
Thank you. All right, Chair Moore, members of the board. I'm Jennifer Gonzalez, the CIP manager. And I'm going to give you a brief status of our existing fiscal year projects. This slide shows our existing projects for this fiscal year. We actually have 18 projects this fiscal year. This shows the ones that are being worked on by the engineering department. If you go to the next slide, we've got 6 more that are being managed via the maintenance and utilities department. Go to the next slide, please. So the first project that we're working on, the largest project by far, is the digester mixer project. Total of $8.2 million, and 4.2 million of that is coming from a grant from Cal Recycle. One digester is almost complete. We actually had the commissioning team out here from Canada last week. And we are going to begin filling up digester number 1, which has been out of service for many years, on Wednesday. And then a second is currently underway as well. The project is anticipated to be completed and commissioned by November, and we'll start accepting food waste at that time. Next slide. Our next large project, this fiscal year, we have 1.25 million for the Monterey and Seaside Pump Station Upgrades Project. That project is awarded for $34 million. That's going to be over a 3-year period. Construction trailers are now on site. You can see that bottom picture there. Work has begun. The top left picture shows the Monterey Pump Station, and you see the lake in the background. That's actually the Navy Lake. So we're just off of Del Monte Boulevard out toward the ocean. And then on the right-hand side is the Seaside Pump Station, which we also call SEPS. And you see that right off the freeway as you're driving by Seaside. And next slide, please. I should say, if you have further questions about any of the projects as we go through, I'm happy to answer them. The next project is our fire pump storage tanks. We are in design of that project. This shows the corrosion that has been going on for several years on the steel tanks that are out there. This provides fire protection for our admin building out at the plant. And we're in the middle of design. We're actually reviewing the 60% design submittals right now. And we're going to be moving the tanks and putting in something other than steel, kind of up on the hill behind SVRP as part of that project. And the next slide, please. So our final effluent flow meter project is on hold right now because the same location that is circled in red is going to be used for the Fort Ord pipe repair project where we're going to be inserting the bypass pipeline. So we have to hold this until we get that project underway. We'll be putting this one out to bid in August. And it's about a $4.2 million project over the next 3 years. Next slide, please. This slide shows some corrosion that's going on at the plant. And this year we have $400,000 to address some of the corrosion issues that we've had. Currently, we've already transferred about $25,000 for another project that we were doing that had some corrosion. And staff is currently working on putting together some sort of on-call or work order related contract so that we can call out multiple contractors to come and deal with specific items as they come up. And so we should have that out to bid pretty quickly. Next project.
Ms. Gonzalez,
Yes.
just quick question on that that bottom left. You sure we didn't accidentally get a photo from an archaeological dig of Mount Vesuvius?
Yeah, yeah, that'll be a complete replacement, not a painting job.
Thank you.
Sure.
Can we save that and give it to the chair, please?
Of course.
Just don't touch it.
Maybe we can get some
Yeah,
money
don't
from
touch
the
it.
recycling plant or something. We have a plant switchgear project that is in design. We're at about the 90% design point on this. We actually started this back in 2018 and it's been put on hold several times. We plan to shoot for commissioning our new switchgear in about a 5-year time frame. So bids aren't going to be solicited until September of 2025. We've got some things going on right now in that same area, and we've actually got some temporary equipment that will get us through very easily and well for the next 5 years. So we're on hold with that one as well, but we're finishing up our the plans so that we'll be ready to go. Next slide. So the secondary clarifier upgrades, we first year was last fiscal year, we did 2. This fiscal year, we did another 2. And next fiscal year, we'll be doing the 3rd set of 2. So we have 6 secondary clarifiers. We're replacing the drives. And on the right-hand side, you can see some of the corrosion that we found on the plate underneath the drives as we took them down. That's what the $25,000 extra dollars from the corrosion contract was used for this fiscal year, was to replace that and bring it back up to good condition. Next slide, please. Okay, the high pressure gas storage rehab. We've recently finalized a study. We had Carollo engineers do a structural study on the existing tank. The cost to upgrade the existing tank, a gas holder, is very significant. And we made a decision to look at the whole gas system. That was one of the projects that Matt was referencing. And so we've put this on hold to spend the rest of that money to start the design of that gas piping and storage project at the beginning of next fiscal year. So we've got some seed money to get that started here. Next project. This is for the supplemental environmental project, SEP. We had $270,000 each year over a 3-year period. And this was a project to eliminate the need to pay the regional board a fine for a couple of spills that we had several years ago. As a negotiation, we were able to start this project, prioritize repairs of sewer laterals in the Castroville and Moss Landing areas. We have 4 complete. This shows pictures of 2 of those laterals that were already replaced. We received bids for 17 more on March 12th, and we're working on contracts and getting things started. And that project is on track to be completed by the end of June. And the final report to the regional board will be going in by August when it's due. Next. Moss Landing Pump Station. We had $150,000 in this year's budget to remove the existing underground storage tank. We did that back in November for about $45,000. And then we decided to put out to bid, putting in a new above ground storage tank that will also be there at the pump station. We had 2 bids come in, and we awarded, actually earlier on the consent agenda, you awarded $333,000 for that above ground storage tank installation. And in removing the old underground storage tank and putting in an above ground storage tank, we've removed potential environmental liabilities that could happen if that tank were to leak underground. So it was good money well spent. The additional funds that we needed to complete the project, which was about $230,000, is coming from the maintenance budget, and there was money available. So we're working on that one. Next project. Coral Street Pump Station has historically been inundated by waves during high tide, storms, southerly wind events in the bay. We've had several times where the waves have overtaken the station, and we had one where the electrical equipment that is underground in that station was completely rendered inoperable. A project to move the electrical equipment from the rocky shoreline to an uphill location has been on the books for many years. Bill will remember. And this year we were allocated $400,000 of federal earmark funds by Congressman Panetta's office to get started on the design and environmental work for the project. So in October, we awarded 2 separate projects or 2 separate contracts for that work. It's been ongoing, and the city of Pacific Grove will be providing more input once the council has had a chance to look at the proposed locations. I believe that's on the council agenda for the April 6th meeting. And the project is anticipated, depending on where we end up moving and what we are able to move, around $10 million to make that station bulletproof.
April 3rd.
April 3rd. Okay, thank you. And then the next slide. This is our Headworks bypass project. This has been ongoing for about 3 years now. And this is a carryover project. It's about 95% complete at this time, should be finished in the next few weeks. There's one more shutdown happening Monday night, Tuesday morning next week, to remove some plugs that have been in place, bypassing the system for the last couple of weeks. This was originally replacing the existing temporary bypass system that was built over 25 years ago. And then, we've brought some updates on this project as we've gone through it. It's been very slow moving, getting, just equipment that was delayed in getting here. And we are almost there. So we're going to have a big party when that project is done. And next slide, please. And that's all the projects that we're working on right now, at least the CIP projects. We additionally have grant funded projects. And I've got, a couple of staff members in engineering who are working on the AWPF injection wells as well. So we're covering a lot of ground this year. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, directors? All right. Very good, thorough report. Thank you for your continued work on behalf of our ratepayers in Monterey One. We get to, public, if they'd like to comment or have questions. Or if Director Williamson has any. All right. Okay, seeing none, we'll move to staff reports.
Thank you, Chair Moore. So in last month, I guess earlier this month, Mike McCullough and I did attend the Water Use Symposium in Denver. It is Water Use Association National has their conference around this time frame of the year. Had about 900 people there. Mike, it was really interesting. We didn't speak specifically, but there were at least 3 presentations about Pure Water Monterey, some of the modeling that's going on at the injection facilities, and then just general water recycling talks throughout. Well attended, and it certainly shows how the industry interest has grown. I'm going to say 5 years ago, there was probably 400 people at these conferences, and it's just increasing. And actually, they did have a registration because of fire marshal. Other thing I want to bring up is Ara Azarian, the GM at the Water Resources Agency, Monterey County Water Resources Agency, and I went down to the Salinas Valley Water Coalition and did a brief presentation on source waters in general. It was source waters for both Pure Water Monterey as well as CSIP, and just some of the details that go along with it. We've been hearing frequently, as I'm sure many of you have, some statements about source waters or where it belongs or where it doesn't belong. And we're just trying to clarify it sort of at a 30,000-foot level of what everyone is contractually obligated to, what has changed from 1998 when CSIP first came online, and what the future looks like. So I think it's very helpful to hear from everyone. The Water Coalition had a number of questions, and just R and I doing the presentations together were helpful because there was questions about both entities and how it's related. And that's all I had. Tammy, or?
I just want to say that we started up SVRP operations this month, and of course with the rain slowed it way down. We also have the AWPF, which they've already mentioned as far as a lot of activity going on. And I'm just continue to be very proud of the team. As you can see with the engineering projects, we've got to maintain and operate all of the equipment that they're installing. So just want to thank my team.
Jim. That's it.
All right, thank you very much. We'll go to agenda item 12, board member comments. All right, staff, thank you for your usual good work. We'll go to agenda item 13, which is public comments on closed session. Anyone wishing to address the board on matters appearing on closed session may do so at this time. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. And of course, we are going into shortly a closed session which involves a conference with labor negotiators. Anyone from the public? All right, seeing none, why don't we take a 5-minute break before we go into closed session?
I'm gonna sign off, everybody. Have a good night.
All right.
Good night.
Thank you for sitting in so late at night, Tyler.
Hope you feel better.
I'm all good. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Um,
Back on.
We're back on, so go ahead.
All
Jeff.
right, we are out of closed session at 8:42. We are on to agenda item 15, which is announcements from closed session, and discussion of the closed session item was taken and no specific action was taken. Is that correct, Mr.
There-
Gilpin?
Thank you. There's no reportable action
No
coming out of
reportable
closed.
action.
No reportable action coming out of closed
Great.
session.
And we are going to stand adjourned. Our next regular board meeting is April 29th. And we also, please put on your calendar, we have a strategic planning workshop on April 30th. We get to see you 2 days in a row. I love it. Thank you very much. We'll see you next month.
Thank you.